All right, we are going to move on to lesson 2.2 today, which has a few different learning targets in the last lesson. Today we're going to talk about point-slope form. So we just worked on slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And now we're going to use something called point-slope form, which is a little bit different, but very, very helpful when it comes to talking about putting graphs in lines of graphs when you have to make sure that you have different information given to you. So we're going to graph them, we're going to rewrite them into various forms, but we're using a point slope form for information that we're given. Okay, so starting off, point slope form looks like this: y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, we know that m is our slope from what we talked about the past few days. Okay, and then x1 and y1 are actually in our point that we're being given. X and y, like we talked about with our slope formula. So x1 is x1, y1 would be the x value of the point, and y1 would be the y value of the point given. Okay. It's helpful to use point slope form when you are given the slope and a point from the graph or from the line. Okay, so we use this in order to figure out actually y equals mx plus b, or it's a little bit easier once you have your point and slope in there. You can just use this and graph it straight from there. So it makes it super simple. Okay, so we're going to kind of go through the different forms here. Write an equation of a line with a given point in point slope form. Okay, so again, using that same equation from up here. All right, but we have m is 1/2, and then this point would be our x1, y1. And just like when we fill in y equals mx plus b, we're not putting anything in for m or for y and x, right? Those just stay the same. So we're filling in the other parts of the equation that have a variable. So that would be our y1, our m, and our x1, okay? And the same thing happens as within slope. This is always going to be a subtraction sign unless we're plugging in a negative number, and then it becomes a positive because it's back-to-back negatives, all right? So let's try it here. If I have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, I'm going to plug in 1/2 for my slope. So this goes right here. Okay. X1 goes in for x1 here. So x stays minus 3. And then y, I would put minus 2, but it's negative 2. So I have to put plus 2 because it comes a positive. And there's your answer. Okay, that's point slope form, using a point and the slope and plugging it in. Okay, so next thing, given 2 points, well, we don't know our m yet, so we have to go find that. All right, and that's using the same formula from the other day, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I've got 3 minus 1 over 2 minus negative 4. Okay, top gives me 2, bottom, these become a positive, so that gives me 6. When I simplify, it's 1/3. Okay, and for the next part, when we're plugging it in, I don't care which point you use. I know we labeled these x1 and y1, x2 and y2, but they're both points on the line, so it doesn't matter which one you choose. So again, if I'm filling this guy in and I'm using the information above, I would put my slope in here for m, x, and then again, you can use either this point or this point. It doesn't matter. So if I'm going to use the negative here, I would put plus 4 and my y minus 1. Okay, so pause and then you try it yourself. Come back and see if you got it right. So we're going to find the slope first. So 3 minus negative 1, and then -3 minus 2 on the bottom. This is addition, so I've got 4 here and -5 here for my slope. Then again, I can plug in either point that I want, so I'm just going to always use the first one is what I normally do. So y plus 1, because this is a negative, equals -4/5 times x minus 2. Okay? Now, graphing them is just as easy, probably even easier, just as easy as the other slope-intercept form, because again, they give you the slope. So my slope is going to be -2/3. And then these two together, remember, make a point. Now, the part you have to remember that people get confused on is that it's the opposite sign that you see in front of it. So if I'm making a point for my x, y values, for this one, my x is actually -1, because remember we made that a positive by subtraction, and my y would be a +3. So those values for the point are opposite signs as what you see in the problem, okay? So I'm going to just go to this point, and that's where I'm going to start. -1, 3 would be left 1, up 3, put a point, and then use your slope from there. -2/3 would go down 2, right 3, down 2, right 3. And then you can draw in your point, or your line, sorry. Okay, so same thing on the next one. We would have a slope of 2. Okay, so my slope equals 2. And then again, if I'm going to use these two for points, that means opposite signs. So +5 and +3. So +5, 3 would be right 5, up 3, put a point. And my slope is 2, which is 2/1. So up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1. You can put as many points as you want and then draw on your line. Okay, so pause and you try one. All right, so again, slope is 1/2. And if I put these two together to make a point, opposite signs would mean +3, -2. So I would go right 3, down 2. And then slope is 1/2, positive. So up 1, right 2. Up 1, right 2. Up 1, right 2. Okay, so on the back, word problem, and then we're done, okay? An event facility has a banquet hall that can hold up to 250 people. The price for a party includes the cost of the room rental plus the cost of a meal for each guest. Marissa is planning an event for 75 people. She has budgeted $1,200 for the party. So your first question is, will that be enough money? And then what does the y-intercept represent for this situation? Okay, so when we're on a table or a chart, you have to remember that anything down here across the bottom all stands for x values because you're on the x-axis, and anything that goes up on the side are the y values because those are the y-axis, right? So if I put a point together on here, it means an x and a y in an ordered pair. All right. So for instance, this guy right here would be at 50 guests for X and $725 for Y. This one would be another point, 100 guests in X and then $1,325 for Y. So each one of these makes a set of a point that goes through, or the line goes through. So all you have to do is pick two of those points, and then we're going to do exactly what we were doing on the front. The one thing I want you to remember that we talked about the other day is that money will always be in the y value spot. Okay, so money will always be the y value when you're making a point. That is super important. Okay, so when I'm talking about these two, I'm just going to use these first 2 points, and we have to write it in point slope form in order to figure this out. So we're just going to find the slope like we were doing a second ago. So I have my x1, y1, x2, y2, and I'm going to put them into that formula. So 1325 minus 725 over 100 minus 50. Okay. Those two give me 600 over 50. And if I divide that, I get 12. Okay. So 12, hopefully you are understanding, this would be our m, or our slope. And so if I fill out our point slope form, okay, y stays minus, and I'm just going to pick my first point here, 725 equals m, which is 12, times x minus 50. Okay, so here would be your equation that you would use, all right? And then if you look at the question, it says, will it be enough? Okay, will it be enough? Meaning you have to make sure that her values, which is what we looked up here, 250 people, right, is what it can hold. But she wants 75 people and $1,200. So again, if I made a point for that, 75 people and $1,200, this would be my x and this would be my y. So I would need to plug those values in for x and y in my equation and solve it. Okay, so 1,200 minus 725 equals 12 times 75 minus 50. Okay, if you do this side, you get 475. And if you solve this side, you get 300. So, yes, she has enough money. Okay, and actually, she will have $175 left over. Okay, since this side has more than this side. All right. Hopefully that all makes sense and you're good to go with that. The y represents in this situation that they end up having y-intercept would be where it starts, so it would be the total cost at 0. Okay. All right. Let me know if you have questions.